It usually starts with something small, a throwaway comment, a random question, or a detail most people wouldn't even notice. But then, the more you think about it, the stranger it gets. Because in entertainment, nothing is ever just what it seems. A mirror isn't just a mirror. A simple scene isn't so simple. And even the most ordinary moments can hide incredibly clever tricks behind them. And once you begin to see how it all works, you can't unsee it. Today, we're diving into those hidden layers, the techniques, the secrets, and the moments that quietly reveal just how much is really going on beneath the surface. Most people watch a scene and just accept it. The reflection looks right, the angle feels natural, and nothing seems out of place. But the moment you stop and ask a very simple question, wait, where is the camera? Everything starts to fall apart in the most fascinating way. Because filming mirrors is one of those things that sounds easy, until you actually try to do it. Think about it. A mirror reflects everything, not just the actor, but the entire environment, the lights, the crew, the equipment, and most importantly, the camera itself. So the biggest challenge isn't making the scene look good, it's hiding the fact that the scene is being filmed at all. And filmmakers have come up with some incredibly clever ways to get around this. One of the simplest techniques is what professionals casually call a cheat. It's exactly what it sounds like. Instead of placing the mirror in a perfectly realistic position, they tilt it just slightly so that it still looks natural to the audience, but conveniently avoids reflecting the camera. It's subtle. Most viewers will never notice, but that tiny adjustment is doing all the heavy lifting. This approach has been used for decades, especially in older films where budgets were tighter and technology was limited. Directors had to rely on pure creativity rather than digital fixes. And sometimes those limitations actually made the scenes feel more authentic. But of course, cheating angles only gets you so far. Because what if the scene demands movement? What if the camera needs to glide, track, or shift perspective while still showing the mirror? Now you've got a much bigger problem. That's where things start getting interesting. Another technique is to remove the mirror entirely, without the audience realizing it. Instead of filming a reflection, filmmakers shoot the actor directly and then frame the shot in a way that makes it look like a mirror. The mirror is basically just an empty frame. What you're seeing isn't a reflection, it's the real person, positioned perfectly to create the illusion. It sounds simple, but it requires extremely precise blocking. Every movement has to be calculated. The actor has to match what a reflection would look like, and the camera has to stay in exactly the right position to sell the illusion. And then there's an even more mind-bending method, using a body double. In this setup, the reflection isn't a reflection at all. It's another person, usually dressed identically, mimicking the actor's movements in real time. If done well, it's almost impossible to detect, but it demands intense coordination. Every gesture, every pause, every subtle shift has to be perfectly synchronized. It's basically choreography, and when it works, it's kind of magical. But let's be honest, modern filmmaking doesn't always rely on these practical tricks anymore. With CGI and digital editing, you can simply erase the camera, adjust reflections, or even create entirely artificial environments. It gives filmmakers a lot more freedom, especially in complex scenes where practical methods would be too limiting or expensive. Still, even with all that technology, many directors prefer practical techniques whenever possible, because there's something about real-world solutions that just feels better, more grounded, more believable. And then you have the most elaborate approach of all, the mirror room technique. This is where things go from clever to borderline insane. Instead of trying to hide the camera, filmmakers build an entire duplicate set on the other side of where the mirror would be. So what looks like a reflection is actually a second, perfectly mirrored version of the room, complete with actors, props, and lighting, all synchronized to match the original side. It's incredibly complex. It requires meticulous planning, precise choreography, and a level of coordination that borders on obsessive. But the result? Total freedom. The camera can move anywhere, the scene can play out naturally, and the illusion holds up perfectly. It's the kind of technique that makes you appreciate just how much effort goes into something that most people will never even question. And that's really the point. Because the best tricks in entertainment aren't the ones you notice. They're the ones you don't. The ones that blend so seamlessly into the story that you never stop to think about how they were done. Until, of course, someone points it out. And once they do, you start seeing it everywhere. And once you start noticing it, you realize it's not just mirrors, it's everything. Because the illusion doesn't stop at how something is filmed. It extends to how it's structured, edited, and even presented to you as an audience. Take television, for example. Most people assume that what they're watching is unfolding exactly as it was recorded. Episode 1 was filmed first, Episode 2 came next. It feels logical, clean, chronological, but in reality, that's rarely how it works. Behind the scenes, producers are constantly making calculated decisions about what you should see first, not based on when it was made, but based on what will hook you fastest. Because the first impression of any show is everything. If the opening episode doesn't land, most viewers won't stick around long enough to see it improve. So instead of starting at the beginning, they start at the strongest point. Imagine filming an entire series where, early on, the format is still being figured out. The pacing is slightly off, the chemistry between participants hasn't fully clicked yet, and a few things just don't feel right. But by the time you reach later episodes, everything sharpens. The energy is better, the structure works, the moments feel bigger. Now here's the twist. You don't show the early ones first. You take that polished, high-energy episode and you lead with it. From the audience's perspective, it looks like the show knew exactly what it was doing from day one. It feels confident, refined, fully formed. But behind the curtain, what you're actually seeing is the result of trial and error, carefully rearranged to create the best possible introduction. And it works. Because viewers don't experience a show in the order it was made. They experience it in the order it's presented. Of course, there are exceptions. Some formats don't allow that kind of flexibility. If a show has a continuous storyline, a rolling jackpot, or returning contestants, then everything has to stay in sequence. You can't suddenly jump ahead without breaking the logic of the format. But whenever there's freedom, producers use it. And it's not just about improving quality, it's about controlling perception. If you can choose which episode defines your show, you can shape how people understand it. You can highlight the most exciting outcomes, the biggest wins, the most dramatic moments. You're essentially curating the audience's first impression with surgical precision. And once you realize that, it changes the way you watch things. Because now, you're not just seeing the show, you're seeing the decisions behind it. You start to wonder, was this really the beginning, or just the best version of it? And that same principle applies across the entire entertainment industry. From how scenes are filmed, to how stories are edited, to how entire narratives are constructed, everything is designed to guide your attention, shape your expectations, and keep you engaged without you even realizing it. Even the smallest details are intentional. A pause that feels natural, timed perfectly. A reveal that hits just right, carefully engineered. A moment that feels spontaneous, probably refined multiple times before it reached you. It's not about deception, it's about design. And the deeper you look, the more you start to appreciate the craftsmanship behind it all. Because creating something that feels effortless is anything but easy. It's layers upon layers of decisions, adjustments, and invisible techniques all working together to create a single, seamless experience. Which brings us back to where we started. A mirror isn't just a mirror. A scene isn't just a scene. And what you're watching is rarely as simple as it looks. So the next time you're watching a film or a show, try this. Don't just follow the story. Look around it. Question it. Notice the details that feel too perfect, too smooth, too precise. Because chances are, there's a story behind the story. And once you start seeing it, you'll never watch anything the same way again. Now I'm curious. What's one scene or moment in a movie or show that made you stop and think, wait, how did they even do that? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to break it down with you. And if you enjoyed this kind of deep dive into the hidden side of entertainment, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, because there's a lot more where this came from.